It was a nice leisurely stroll on the beach until gunshots rang out. Hello, true crimerers. This is the case of April Barber. Viewer discretion is advised. April Barber was born in Oklahoma on April 21st, 1975. She had a brother and a sister. April would go on to graduate from Hennessy High School in Oklahoma in 1993, and that's where she was the salutatorian, if I said that right. I had to look that up because I'd never heard that before. I guess it's the person who graduated second in the class, I guess below the valedictorian. April then goes on to attend Oklahoma State University. She goes there for almost 4 years before she graduates, and then she goes to OU Health and Allied Services. And it's there where she got her degree in radiology, and that was around 1999 or so. According to her obituary, she was an academic all-star, and she was a part of a sorority during her college years. Everyone said that April was this really sweet, very down-to-earth, almost, charming individual. If you knew her, you just instantly knew she was a good person. She just gave off those vibes. And it sounds like she was kind of a mix of feminine girl and borderline tomboy type person. She had competed in beauty pageants when she was a kid. She had this beautiful, head of blonde hair. But she also didn't mind being outdoors and being a little rugged. She would also go hunting, and she loved camping and just being outside in general. Now, April and her siblings had grew up with a father who wasn't really present very much. It doesn't sound like he was really involved with the family. In 1993, unfortunately, her mom died from cancer. And because her two siblings were younger, and this is a photo of April with her two siblings, she ended up taking over the role of mom and dad, really, for both of them. And that's what drove her. There's two reasons why it drove her to become a radiologist. One, she wanted to help people who were battling cancer, like her mother had. Working in radiology, you can help detect those things like cancer. But she also wanted to have a potential career where she can earn a good income, not only for herself, but also to help take care of her siblings. That's the kind of person she was, just a naturally mothering type. And it seems like her priority was to help in any way she could. She had met a man named Justin Barber at some point in the mid to late 90s, I believe. And by 1999, the two of them had gotten married. They were two peas in a pod because they both grew up in rural kind of areas. They both weren't really city folk per se. They were more country farm type people. Justin was, he worked on a ranch, he rode horses, he dealt with hay bales, and he worked at a local grocery store for several years. And he also grew up in a really close-knit, very loving family. I know he had at least an older brother. Justin was considered to be very polite, solitary type guy. He was raised in a Christian household. He was also an excellent student. He would end up becoming a straight A student, and he was the valedictorian at his high school graduation. At one point, he worked as a financial analyst, but then he went back to school to focus on a business degree. April was introduced to Justin by a friend, and the two of them hit it off very quickly. Within a year or so, they were engaged, and in August of 1999, they were married on a beach in the Bahamas, which is actually there's a certain irony, I guess, to it. Maybe not using the right word, and it turns out it would also end on a beach. For their third anniversary, they would actually travel to northern Florida. On August 17th, 2002, they had gone out to a nice dinner. Then they began to do a nighttime stroll on the beach. This was actually at the Guana River State Park. It's actually a really beautiful little beach there. These are some photos of it. Yeah, it's a really, pretty area. But also during the night, this was a very secluded beach. It wasn't like one that was super out in the open, and it didn't have a lot of people on it either. So on that night, on August 17th, 2002, there is a motorist driving down the road where he is flagged down by a man who appears to be in some pretty severe distress. That man is able to call 911. This is a brief clip from the 911 call. This is actually taken from forensic files.
Well, what was your emergency?
I think somebody's been shot.
Is he conscious at all?
Yeah, he's conscious. They're trying to keep him that way.
Okay, do you see a gunshot wound, sir?
Gunshot or stab?
Oh, so he is
I
bleeding.
can't actually tell.
When the motorist passed by Justin trying to flag them down, he was apparently flagging him down from inside of his own vehicle, an SUV. And then once the motorist stopped to check on him, Justin had kind of slumped over onto his steering wheel, and it was very obvious that he had injuries to his body. He told the man that he and his wife had just been attacked while walking on the beach by an unknown assailant. 30-year-old Justin, once the authorities arrived, they realized he was in potentially a very dire situation. He's telling police, my wife is on the beach somewhere, she's shot, I need, to go get her help. But they load Justin up into the ambulance and they rush him to the nearest hospital, trauma center in Jacksonville, Florida. He had been shot 4 times. He had bullet wounds to his, I think it was his shoulders. He had one through his hand and he had one near his rib cage. None of the gunshots that he experienced passed by any vital organs. So in a sense, he was extremely lucky. Meanwhile, police are searching the beach, and along this, the boardwalk there, which is like this really long wooden kind of walkway, towards the very end of it, they find someone lying on the ground. And as they get closer, they can tell that this is an adult woman, and she is in a pool of blood. When they go to check on her, unfortunately, she is deceased. And this was confirmed to be 27-year-old April Barber. She had been shot to death. April had suffered a single gunshot wound through her left cheek. Within a day, Justin Barber is released from the hospital. None of his wounds were remotely close to being life-threatening. The following day, he went with detectives to go back onto the beach where they recorded him trying to go over everything that he can remember happened. So what he says, and this is his quote, "We were walking along and I was looking down, watching the waves come in over feet, and I felt April tense up. And I looked up and a man was approaching us very quickly, and he was not too far away." He says the man was wearing a baseball cap. Then tells police that this man was carrying a gun, a pistol. He says it happened really, really fast. The man was holding up his hand, seemed agitated, and he was demanding cash from us. Justin says he then remembers hearing a gunshot, and then he began struggling for the weapon with the assailant. The next thing he remembers, he passes out, and when he woke up, he is in pain because he has been shot multiple times. He then says he begins to immediately look for April, and he found her lying face down towards the very edge of the beach where the water was coming in, and so she was partially submerged. And so he ends up dragging her about 100 yards up the beach. And this is a photo of actual drag marks in the sand to confirm that part of his story. He tells them that he tried to pick up April and lean her against a rail, but she just completely fell over and she slumped onto the boardwalk. The problem police are going to have now is that the tide was coming in fairly quickly and they didn't have much time, and so they had to look for evidence fast. Despite all of their searching, they found no other evidence. They did not find any shell casings. They did not find the gun. There was no evidence found at the scene. Justin describes the assailant as, he says, he's a little taller than me, he's a little heavier than me, but not overweight. He had on a baggy shirt and a ball cap. I couldn't see his face and had pale hands. What he was describing was a white male with tan skin, and he gave a description enough to come up with this composite drawing of his so-called assailant. And I guess there was a man local in the area in Jacksonville that detectives thought looked very similar to the composite drawing that Justin helped come up with. But they would investigate this man and they determined that he could not have possibly committed this murder. And so ultimately at that point, they had no official suspects right away. They didn't know what the motive was, because this person, according to Justin, demanded cash, demanded money. However, nothing was stolen from April, nothing was stolen from Justin. So this person was bold enough to pursue this couple on the beach, corner them, and threaten to kill them if he didn't give them money. He then shoots April once, killing her, and then he struggles with the gun with Justin. Justin, I guess, at some point falls to the ground, and the assailant shoots him 4 times, but just so happens to miss every single vital organ, whereas he was able to fatally shoot April with 1 shot. It didn't make sense. It's not to say that it's not a possible story. It just didn't make sense. Why would you kill a person and then leave the other person alive? Because he wasn't wearing a face mask. His face was visible. It was dark, so we didn't get like the best look at him, at this so-called assailant. So why would he not, if he'd already killed someone, why would he not kill the other person who was a witness? It doesn't make sense. And how on earth, if Justin's on the ground, passed out at this point because the guy knocked him out, why would he shoot him 4 times and just so happens to miss every organ that would have killed him if he had shot through it? But they needed evidence to prove that potentially Justin was lying. So they would end up getting a warrant to search the Barber household back in Oklahoma. They seized, quite a bit of things, but really the only thing that had any kind of evidentiary value was Justin Barber's computer. While they're searching through his computer, they're having the tech experts go through it. They are talking to Justin some more now in Oklahoma. Justin described his marriage as great, as wonderful, it was happy, it was normal. But when they interviewed other people, they found out that was not true. Because really quickly into their marriage, April had her younger sister and younger brother move in with them into their home. And apparently, according to the siblings, this caused a lot of fights between April and Justin. They were arguing about how to discipline these 2 kids. This would start very loud screaming matches between the 2. April just wanted to take care of her siblings. She wanted to make sure they had a good life. Justin seemed to be super strict and kind of a dick. This would end up leading to about the year 2000 or so, when the 2 kids ended up just moving out of the house to stay with other relatives because of how bad the arguing was. And then shortly after that, Justin gets a new job, which actually takes him to Florida. April gets a new job that takes her to Georgia. April then confides in one of her very good friends that she had found out that Justin, while in Florida, started playing tennis with a girl that he met at a rental car place. And April believed that at that point, Justin was cheating on her with this girl. And at one point, she confronted Justin directly about this. Justin angrily denied any of these allegations that he was having an affair. This good friend that April was confiding in also was told by April shortly before all of this happened that April was going to be leaving Justin. Amber, the friend, told police that that April had told Justin she was leaving him, like right as this trip to Florida was happening. As they're digging more into this marriage, they are also finding other things, like our good friend, life insurance policies. Yep, they had them. April had a $2 million life insurance policy. April got this insurance policy herself, and it was the intent that if anything happened to her 2 siblings, that money was meant for them to help make sure they had everything they needed. But the insurance policy was still going to be, the beneficiary technically was Justin Barber. He was supposed to move it for the kids, the siblings. But $2 million was huge. That's a motive right then and there. And she's leaving him. She's telling him that, we're done. And on his computer, they find a lot of very interesting things that he had deliberately deleted just before he handed his computer over to police, which he actually boxed up himself and gave to them. They found, well, first of all, they found a song that he had downloaded like a couple of weeks or a week or so before April's death, and it was by Guns N' Roses, and it was a song essentially about shooting someone and, a wife, something like that. And he had deleted it the day before police took the computer. But more damning was, because the song really had a lot of ominous connections with what actually happened with April. But more ominous, on the computer, they found a bunch of searches saying where to shoot, if you get shot in this area, is it fatal? If you get shot in the right chest, if you get shot in the shoulder, is it fatal? He had a lot of searches for gunshots, locations to be shot that you could survive, that kind of thing. And this is all before April is shot, and he is shot 4 times. And that was a giant clue right there. Clearly, he's looking up searches on where to get shot if you want to survive. He ends up getting shot in those exact areas that he had been searching for. Furthermore, when they looked at him, once he was basically healed up enough, he still obviously had the gunshot wounds. They determined that with each gunshot wound, they came at almost a downward angle. So like he was pointing it towards himself and pulling the trigger. And so they believe that Justin shot and killed April and then shot himself 4 times and then disposed of the gun somewhere, probably in the ocean, to make it look like he was also a victim. In 2004, Justin Barber is officially arrested, and he is charged with the murder of his wife, April Barber. During his trial, they actually bring up as a witness the woman that he was in fact having an affair with. She goes on the stand and testifies that it was a sexual relationship. And through this, they also find out that Justin Barber was having other sexual affairs with other people. He had traveled to New Zealand. He had a relationship with a woman there. He had a relationship with a woman in Georgia, where April was working. During his 3-year marriage, he had cheated on her with 5 different women. They also learn and reveal at the trial that Justin was having a lot of financial struggles. He was in the red pretty bad. He was, as they described, drowning in debt. With the computer searches, with the life insurance policy, this was enough proof in their eyes that this was a premeditated murder. He had also learned that April was going to be leaving him. At the trial, the medical examiner would reveal something else pretty profound. When April was found on the boardwalk, she had white foam around her mouth. And this was indicative of someone inhaling salt water. What that told them was that April had first had her head put underwater in the beach water before she was shot, and then she was shot. So he said he woke up, found her, with her face down in the water after she was already basically dead at that point. But that could not have happened because she could not have inhaled seawater if she was already deceased or not breathing. Before the tide came in and got rid of any potential evidence, another thing they noticed was that there were really no other shoe impressions or foot impressions in the sand. You could kind of see where April and Justin had their, foot impressions, but there was no one else. So it's like, we have no evidence that there even was another person on that beach with you two. The defense would try to put up a case that someone else did do this. They said that witnesses came forward that spotted a Chrysler type sedan parked behind Justin and April's SUV on the night of the murder. That wasn't there when the police came. The defense said, well, that could have been the assailant that Justin said was there. And his defense blamed the police and the prosecution for not bothering to really find any other suspects. That they just almost from the get-go said, nah, he's guilty. He's the husband. He did it, obviously, so we're not going to bother. But that's not really true in this case, because they did actually, I know a lot of times when detectives are, bad ones are like, it's just this guy. We're not going to bother. But in this case, they did. They did look into the people who matched the description of this composite that Justin gave, and the person they said it looked like, it turns out it could not have been him. They didn't find anyone else. They didn't find any witnesses that said they saw anyone else. But the biggest thing is the fact that he had searched on his internet, on his computer, the exact same places, where to get shot to not be fatal. And he is then shot in those precise areas. That's done on a computer in his home, on his computer. Is he a prophet? Was he predicting the future? Like, what do they think that was? Justin was deeply in debt. He needed money. And if April left him, he would no longer be on the insurance policy, meaning he wouldn't get that $2 million if anything should happen to her. Money plus affairs plus the just very specific internet searches, the song about a wife being killed or something like that being deleted from his computer the day before police take it, the fact that he was shot in 4 specific locations that just so happened to miss every organ, and yet his wife was shot from, a few feet away perfectly so that she would only suffer 1 gunshot wound and die. None of it made sense. None of it made sense. The only viable suspect here was Justin Barber. Justin Barber would never take the stand during his trial. He would later go on to be interviewed by Dateline, and he would say, when someone asked him, do you miss April? He would say, quote, every day. Every day. She was one of a kind, and I didn't deserve to have her. They asked him as well about April saying she was leaving him, and he said, quote, I can tell you without a doubt that April never told me that she was divorcing me. To say that April had confronted me with leaving and divorcing, it's not true at all. But of course he's going to say that. What is he going to say? If he's trying to say that he's innocent, he's not going to say, yeah, she told me she was divorcing me and I was going to lose the option for $2 million, so I killed her. He's not going to admit the truth. The case eventually goes to the jury. The jury deliberates for quite some time. It's for several days. And they finally come to a verdict. Justin would rise. The jury would announce their verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant, Justin Barber, guilty of first-degree murder. The jury would end up recommending the death penalty in his case. This is in Florida. The judge would end up overruling the jury's recommendation for death, and he instead gave Justin Barber the sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justin Barber has since appealed many, many times to no avail. He plans to continue appealing, but it really does sound like he was the one. I mean, there really just is no other options. All the evidence against him was unbelievable. Did they have a ton of physical evidence that put a gun in his hand that showed he pulled the trigger and shot her and then himself? No. But sometimes circumstantial evidence can be that strong to say, okay, there's just no other person. This has to be the one. The internet searches, the 5 different affairs, the precise shooting of April, but then the convenient misses on his own body. Why wasn't he just shot once in the head if he was on the ground? Why would the assailant leave him alive if he had just killed another person? Why didn't he take anything? Why didn't he rob their wallets? Why? Why did no one see anyone running or anything like that? He was having affairs. She was going to divorce him, which means that she would take any money options for life insurance away from him. He was deeply in debt. This was him. He did it. And he is exactly where he deserves to be, in prison for the rest of his life. April Barber was a kind, caring soul. She was trying her best to be a mother figure to her 2 young siblings who had lost their mom, who didn't really have much of a father figure in their life. April was doing it all for them. And she loved it. She wanted to do that for them. And so in a sense, when Justin killed her, not only did they lose their mother, their biological mother, they technically lost another mom, really, and a sister all in one. And they have that trauma now that they have to live with, of losing all of their parental figures. April Barber did not deserve what happened to her. This should not have happened to her. This is just a story of another weak man who can't handle rejection, who thinks he should be able to have more than what's typically allowed, and money. Money, money, money. Human life, just people like this, is less than of money. That's pretty disgusting. But in the end, thankfully, April Barber was able to get the justice she very rightfully deserved. But that is it for this case. True crime, Rooney, Dooney, Dingleberry Dongs. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, if you are new here, hello, my name is Mike. I tell true crime stories here on YouTube, obviously. So please subscribe if you're into that kind of thing and you're a bunch of cuckoo wackadoos like the rest of us. And hit the bell so you're notified when I post new videos. Drop a like, drop a comment so more people can see the video. I also tell short form true crime stories over on TikTok. The link to my TikTok is in the link tree, which is in the description of this video, just below the video that you are watching. I'm a robot. I don't know. So please follow that if you like to. Words are hard sometimes. Lastly, also in that link tree below, you'll find my case list. The case list is about 7,500 names long or so. I typically choose cases that I cover at random, but if you don't see a name on that list, and it is alphabetical for the most part, and you want me to cover a case that you don't see, just send me a quick email. My email is also listed below. All I need to know is the name of the case, where it happened, and when it happened, and I'll add that name to my list, and then I will cover it eventually. Now, if you are a loved one to a missing or murdered person, it's a cold case, it's unsolved, maybe it is solved, but you still want their story told, just let me know in the email that you are a direct family member, and I can make sure that case gets a higher priority. But that being said, that is it for this video, True Crime Maroonies. So until the next case, ta-ta for now.